Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. As a result of our newfangled ways of communicating, I can't really be sure just when you'll be watching our service. No matter, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint. Our ministers are the Reverends Lynn and Jerry Kerr. Now, I'm hoping to accomplish at least two things with my welcoming comments this morning. First, if you're not familiar with our faith tradition, Unitarian Universalism, I want to invite you to give us a try. Try us. You might like us. We don't care if you're unchurched as I was when Hal Lawson and Linda Pinty kept inviting me to this church over 40 years ago. We don't care who you sleep with. We don't care if you were or are a Catholic, a Protestant, or some other faith tradition, or an atheist, or an agnostic. This church tries to make religion make sense for you. There's no encyclopedia of theology that you must ascribe to. It's more challenging than that. You are encouraged to discover what makes sense to you, what speaks to your heart and to your intellect. Second, it's no secret that this is Easter Sunday, Sunday for millions of Christians around the world, a celebration of rebirth. It's spring, the weather is warming, the grasses are greening, the plants are poking through the top of the soil. There are two stories of rebirth I'm going to mention in these opening comments. First, we have new leadership in our nation's capital, and that leadership seems to better represent the values and the traditions that I respect, and I'm going to give them a fair chance. And there appears to be a rebirth of leadership from our scientific and medical communities. And perhaps it's no better represented than by this latest possession of mine, a laminated COVID vaccination card. I can't encourage you enough to go get vaccinated and be reborn in a sense. Now here's a way to enjoy this virtual service. Go get a candle to light in a few moments and sing during songs, if you know the words or if they appear on your screen. It's a perfect kind of service for terrible singers like me to just let it rip. And now for some announcements. It'd be nice, but we can't live on love alone. Our 2021-22 canvas is underway, and pledge forms are beginning to come in. Thanks to all of those of you who have pledged and returned the appropriate form. And a special thanks to those of you who have increased your pledge. Thanks to all, in addition, who give your time and talent to the UUCF. And our deadline for returning pledge forms is April 30th. And today is April 3rd, my simple math skills tell me you've got 27 more days to meet that April 30 deadline. So if you're interested in pledging or want to talk about your pledge, please contact Sandra Murphy, our canvas chair, or our ministers, the Reverends Lynn and Jerry Kerr. And I'd like to give a special thanks to Sandra Murphy for her willingness to lead the campaign this year. Our next announcement, a reminder that next week's second Sunday offering will be for the food bank of Eastern Michigan. But you know what? You can send a check in anytime to the church. Once again, that's the food bank of Eastern Michigan. Make that notation in the notation line on your check. If you would like more information about our faith tradition, Unitarian Universalism, or our congregation, please feel free to contact one of our ministers or contact our office. And that contact information can be found easily at uuflint.org. Join us for coffee hour after the service on Zoom. The ID can be found on our website and in the e-update. And now for our musical prelude from Jennifer Howard. It's time now for our chalice lighting, and I know all of you, well, maybe most of you, have that candle ready to light. And I am assisted by the very able and capable Reverend Jerry to my left, your right. Our words this morning are Call to Worship on Easter, adapted by Elizabeth M. Strong. Out of earth rises light, rises life, rises spring. May we join with the miracle that is springtime and enter into life with lightness and joy. Now please join with me, if you will, in reciting our covenant, recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service. We gather as a sacred intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice. Thank you.
Good morning and happy Easter. Our opening words this morning are adapted from Ruth Gibson. Too often we have not taken time to search for the beauty hidden around us. As we allow it to go unnoticed, we have deprived ourselves of occasions for joy and delight. On this Easter morning, may our senses come alive, ready to respond to all the beauty, the harmony, the fragrance, taste, and texture of life all around us. It is a season of renewal, and everything is bursting and blooming or singing. The hidden beauty of nature is preparing to come forth. On this Easter morning, we would be assured that we too have a hidden inner beauty ready to unfold.
Good morning. Our meditation this morning is entitled A Martian American on Spring Break. And I'd like to invite you to imagine you were born on the planet Mars to parents who were some of the first to colonize that planet. So please make yourself comfortable and imagine you are a 20-year-old college student who has never been to Earth. Your parents have agreed to let you take a flight back to planet Earth as a much-needed spring break from your studies. The trip is a package deal billed as Experience Earth. You have seen many pictures and videos of planet Earth, even had 3D virtual reality experiences, but you have never seen a tree, much less a forest. You have a window seat on the shuttle that takes you from the big ship down to Earth, and it allows you to see Earth's beauty from a distance. You've been told 1,000 times how beautiful it is compared to the barren Martian landscape. But you have tried to keep your expectations low. It is not cool to get all mushy over a planet your grandparents deserted so very long ago. In the distance, you see immense tracts of green, spotted here and there by bodies of water that you know from your studies are called lakes. It still looks like a picture to you, a virtual reality show. Pretty, but just an image. Your fellow college students are oohing and awing at the scenery. Is their amazement genuine or just a performance? Your landing zone has been carefully chosen by the tour guides to immediately get you close to natural wonders, wonders you've never experienced. They think this might somehow be good for young people who have never lived outside the protective bubble of their Martian settlement. As you exit the shuttle door, a part of you recoils at the idea of going through the door without your spacesuit. Your throat closes for a second, and you gasp for air and it's there. You and your fellows laugh in amazement. How can it be breathable air everywhere, not coming through a hose or made by a giant generator? You know the physical explanation for it, but still, it makes you think. You board a solar bus that you are told will take you to your first Earth experience. Perhaps you would rather stay at the gift shop or go immediately to the promised beach. But the tour guides treat this as a holy experience that you must do. The bus rolls silently away from the landing pad, and in just a few minutes, you see it in the distance, silhouetted against the sky, a solitary and immense tree. Your first impression is that it is a living giant that might step on the bus if it gets angry. You can see, even from afar, that the wind is playing in its branches, making obvious that this being lives in the sky as well as on the earth. You and your fellow students are a little confused. Is this our destination? This is what our parents paid for to give us an experience of earth? Many are giggling, but some are now quiet and staring at this thing, this living thing that they had only seen in pictures. Good pictures they were, but now it is clear that 3D shows are still just shows, not reality. You're not in Kansas anymore, or Mars either, you think to yourself, using an old line from a movie. Much of what you know about Earth you learned in movies. The bus parks and the docent greets you, and she is positively an ancient earthling. Her hair is the same color as the rough skin on the tree that now looms over you. You remember that they call the skin of a tree bark. She smiles and asks you to come closer and gather around the tree so you can hear her. She doesn't ask for silence, but most of the students are already quiet. It was as though this thing itself called for silent reverence, while also allowing you some joyous banter too. It was a relationship somehow. It would stand there and be majestic for you, and you could take it or leave it. Most of your group is now talking in hushed whispers. My God, they say, and other oaths they learned from their parents that were not allowed in public places. One of your friends looks upward into the towering creature's massive wind-rustled canopy, sees a bird nesting there, and starts crying. He was always crying about something, but this time no one made fun of him. The docent's speech was short. This is one of only 100 white oak trees that survived when the earth warmed 120 years ago. Oak trees need a cold winter to survive. And when the cold went away, most of them died. When I was little, I would play under the oaks in my own yard and wait out summer showers, safe and dry under them. They were like my friends. When they started dying, I knew we humans had taken them for granted and thought only of ourselves. Now, nearly all of the student group are crying. It was our grandparents and their parents before them that killed these great beings. They took these gentle giants for granted. If those earthlings had lived on Mars for a while, they would have known better. Some of the students kneel now while they stare at this awe-inspiring, surviving witness of the sacredness of creation. No one told them to kneel. They just did. And they touched it as though it might bestow a blessing.
Our reading today are the words of Matthew Fox, the Catholic priest and theologian and Dominican monk who was silenced for a year and later expelled by Pope Benedict. Fox has written 35 books, and all of them proclaim that the church must change to save itself and our planet. He writes, "The legendary professor of Jewish mysticism, Abraham Heschel, defined mysticism as radical amazement. The mystic in us is the one moved to radical amazement by the awe of things. Awe is the beginning of wisdom," Heschel declares, and he is being true to the great mystical wisdom literature of Israel that knew nothing of the angry sky god, Yahweh. Albert Einstein is also working from this tradition when he defines mysticism as being able to wonder, marvel, and be wrapped in awe. I think humans exist for awe's sake, to be radically amazed and to draw radical amazement from one another. That is our task. It is a mystical task, a task that demands we overcome the temptation to take our existence for granted. Translators of the Bible have mistakenly mistranslated the Hebrew word for awe as fear. Heschel knew better. Awe contains an element of terror, as when we behold the amazing 20 billion year drama that is the universe, and we say, wow. But that is not about fearing a wrathful God. It is about reverence for creation and the greatness of our existence. The beginning of wisdom is truly awe.
As I go down in the river to pray, studying about that old good way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sisters, let's go down in the river to pray. As I go down in the river to pray, studying about that old good way, and who shall wear the robe and crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, brothers, let's go down, come on down. Oh, brothers, let's go down in the river to pray. As I go down in the river to pray, studying about that good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, fathers, let's go down, come on down. Oh, fathers, let's go down in the river to pray. As I go down in the river to pray, studying about that old good way, and who shall wear the robe and crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, mothers, let's go down, come on down, don't you want to go down? Oh, mothers, let's go down in the river to pray. As I go down in the river to pray, studying about that old good way, and who shall wear the starry crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Oh, family, let's go down, come on down. Oh, family, let's go down in the river to pray. As I go down in the river to pray, studying about that old good way, and who shall wear the robe and crown? Good Lord, show me the way. Thanks, guys.
It is Easter again, and many people still, understandably, want to know, what do springtime Easter stories of egg-laying bunny rabbits have to do with the Easter that is also about Jesus being executed by the Romans? Of course, the Christian Easter happens in the spring and is even named after the old Germanic goddess Eostre, from which we get our word Easter. So this is confusing. Is Easter about worshiping nature or about worshiping the man who is said to be a god who rose from the dead? Or could Easter be both? It's hard to see how Jesus, a country peasant, walking toward Jerusalem to speak his mind in protest of many things, how could that ever be connected to joyous spring nature festivals? It's hard to understand unless it was nature itself that sent Jesus on his way to speak his truth. Not some sky god sending him, but nature, also known as Mother Earth, the great mother, the goddess with 1,000 names. Jesus had seen a lot of bad things in his 30 years. Terrible poverty, the mistreatment of the mentally ill, crooked tax collectors colluding with the Romans, leprosy, and crippling diseases. Perhaps worst of all, the Judaism of his day was more about ritual purity, not compassion and justice, that were also an important part of their ancient tradition. Jesus had been through that dry, desert part of life, as many of us have. And like many of us, he was also awestruck by the beauty of creation. The Jesus of history often talked about nature. The birds that somehow found what they needed to live, even in the arid country of Palestine. How awesome is that? And he spoke of the intricately beautiful lilies, more beautiful than any man-made clothing that even King Solomon could buy with all of his riches. What does it mean that such a flower is possible? He obviously didn't take the wonders and grace of the natural world for granted. He told his 12 disciples, "You know, guys, foxes have holes and birds have nests, but protesters like us, we don't even have a place to lay our head." He knew their truth deserved a home on the earth, and that belief is from the wisdom tradition, which is the bailiwick of the goddess. The people of Palestine, after all, had worshipped the earth goddess Asherah for thousands of years, until the sky gods pushed them out. But you can't just get rid of a goddess. The Great Mother is a part of the human mind, and Jesus was awake to it. Jesus was part pagan, pure and simple, and he had the nerve and the need to speak out for justice and compassion. In 1993, Catholic priest and theologian Matthew Fox learned that it had finally happened. Pope Benedict said he was out of the Catholic Church. It did not surprise him. He had been run over by this train before. In 1989, the Pope had silenced Fox for a full year. His offense was teaching that Jesus would not be pleased with the current church. Just as Jesus criticized the religion of his day, Matthew Fox showed that Catholicism was more concerned with orthodoxy than with compassion and justice. He saw the hypocrisy of a church that showed little love for gay people, had rules that forbade the ordination of women and a married priesthood. Like Jesus of Nazareth, Matthew Fox had had his awakening many years before his persecution began. He had seen the beauty of the natural world and all of the pain of life too. When he was young, his mother was disabled in a terrible car accident. But he had also seen the best the world had to offer. He grew up in the intellectual world of Madison, Wisconsin, where he was encouraged to think deeply about religion without fear of being reprimanded. Matthew had had his resurrection moment, and it gave him the nerve and the need to speak his mind. He started writing books that people really liked because they had the ring of truth. In 1972, Matthew Fox wrote Original Blessing, and the title said it all. He didn't believe in original sin. He believed in the original blessing that is our amazing world, its life, and its beauty. His thoughts weren't all that original, just well argued. St. Francis in the 11th century, Hildegard of Bingen in the 12th century, and Meister Eckhart of the 13th century, and many others had said the very same thing. They were also always in trouble with the Pope of their own day. Matthew's books called for a creation spirituality. He criticized his church for its focus on dogma that had nothing to do with Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus of Nazareth, Fox realized, was a nature mystic, as well as being a first century Jew. Then, in 1993, after threatening him many times, Pope Benedict expelled him. Fox had many supporters from many churches. He is a celebrity. To those who know Christianity must be changed, resurrected by coming to the real Jesus. You know you have the attention of the nation and get the thrill you've never known when you get your picture on the cover of the Rolling Stone. And Fox did. But what he really wanted was the people of his own faith to see that they could help heal the planet just by following Jesus, the nature lover. When the long, hard winter ends, and you very soon see those amazing flowers coming up in a place that was frozen solid just a month ago, when that happens, you sometimes have the sense that this creation cannot be taken for granted. Many great thinkers believe that the basis of all religions is the awe and wonder humans experience when they behold a giant oak tree, or an angry ocean, or even a little bird making its living in a dry and inhospitable place. And then humans, ancient and modern, come to see the world as a precious place. A precious place that for the health of creation should be revered, not despoiled, used up. It is a resurrection of the part of human consciousness that sees how we are all connected, and that is a real resurrection. The experiences I'm describing is usually called a mystical experience. The word mysticism just means to enter the mystery. A mystery often confronts us when we behold something we don't fully understand. For example, when you see a Hubble telescope picture of the immense dust clouds known as the pillars of creation, 7,000 light years away, when you see that and you get a tickle of awe, that is a mystical experience. Most UUs don't use that word mystical, though. When the avid kayakers from our church return from a trip on the river, they don't say, "Oh, I had a mystical experience today on the Flint River." But they could say that. They describe in glowing terms how it is so relaxing and how they saw this or that creature, and it is clear they were moved by it. That is, entering a mystery of life so amazing you don't fully understand it. And not only do we shy away from the word mysticism, we seldom say the word prayer either. We don't say, "I want to go down in the river and pray," seated in my kayak, of course. But a mystical experience on the river, or anywhere, is an open prayer in which you just watch and listen. Abraham Maslow called these experiences of awe peak experiences. Aldous Huxley, the author, said, "Religions everywhere believe these experiences are the true path to wisdom." He called it the perennial philosophy, perennial because it never dies. Matthew Fox says such experiences are ordinary and common if we just pay attention. You don't have to go live on a barren planet and then come home to realize that a giant tree is worthy of our reverence. For 30 years, Jesus had seen, lived, experienced the good and the bad of his occupied homeland. He apparently realized that, oddly enough, if you want to defeat the powers of darkness, you have to love the whole creation. He started telling people to love their enemies. Be nice to people who treat you badly. He didn't say, don't have enemies. He said, love them. God sends the rain to fall on both the evil and the good, said the real Jesus. In Palestine, it was very good to have rain fall on you. I think it's accurate to say he was resurrected before he went to Jerusalem for the Passover festival. His mind had been made whole. He knew he had to speak, and he wasn't stopping for anything. The painstaking, acclaimed scholar John Dominic Crossan says Jesus had never even been to the big city of Jerusalem. He was a true country peasant, but also a radical social reformer and egalitarian. He was a mostly peaceful revolutionary, and not even the possibility of getting arrested by the Romans for disturbing the peace deterred him. Of course, he knew all about the Romans' preferred method of capital punishment, but he was a protester on a mission, and he felt he could save his country and his people. Jesus was disgusted with the religion of his day. It excluded people who weren't of the right race or class, and it did little for the poor. When he got to Jerusalem, he went into the temple and started throwing things around to show his contempt. People call it the cleansing of the temple. It is a part of the passion narrative that evidently really happened. He was arrested, and he apparently would not say he was sorry. It probably wouldn't have done any good, of course. He was crucified by the Romans, and of that there is no doubt. It is likely that his body was disposed of at some point, perhaps so his followers could not have it. No one really knows. But we do know that the earliest account of that first Easter from the book of Mark ends with his female friends discovering an empty tomb. There was no resurrection scene in the original Gospel according to Mark, the first written Gospel. Other accounts were written much later in which Jesus' resurrection was not that of a man whose mind had been opened. They were about a physical resurrection of his body. These later written stories of bodily resurrection can feel to some of us a bit like an insult to the way of nature, where people die and return to their mother, the earth. Jesus went to Jerusalem to speak his unpopular truth to the powerful people in charge. Being a Catholic Christian, Matthew Fox went to Rome. Or more exactly, he sent a book to the Pope in Rome, and it was entitled Letters to Pope Francis. Fox had never been shy. His experiences had made him bold. To get everyone's attention in 2011, he took a page from the Reformation's Martin Luther and wrote his own 95 Theses for the modern Catholic Church. Then he nailed them to the door of a cathedral in Rome. It was the cathedral appointed to cardinal law after he was removed from the Archdiocese of Boston for protecting 70 pedophile priests. This was just one more example of a temple being cleansed by someone who has seen the light. Fox's new idea for religion, creation, spirituality, got him crucified in a sense. But crucifying someone or telling them to be quiet for a year doesn't seem to stop the truth from being known. It seems that neither Jesus or Matthew Fox or any person with a message the earth truly needs gets silenced for very long. Matthew has now written 35 books, and every one of them shows how the Catholic Church often fails to follow in the footsteps of Jesus of Nazareth. Fox is provocative and challenges people to arguments about how the church must change, must have women priests, married priests, and full acceptance of LGBTQ people. After the expulsion, the Episcopalian champion of reinventing Christianity, Bishop John Shelby Spong, quickly ordained Fox as a priest in the Episcopal Church. Pope Benedict didn't silence Fox. He gave him a loudspeaker. Fox's vision for the church includes a new type of worship that uses big screen TVs, huge speakers that present awe-inspiring images of nature. He wants to make people aware that creation itself, not some idea of an unpredictable God in the sky, but nature itself is worthy of our reverence, even our worship. Matthew Fox is going strong at the age of 81, and he's still waiting for Pope Francis to answer his letters. The letters in which Fox reminded the current pope that his namesake, St. Francis of Assisi, was a nature lover, just like Jesus. I started this sermon pondering the question, can the Easter Bunny and Jesus coexist in an Easter celebration? I think the answer is we need to make sure they do. Of course, many people in the world want their spring holy day to contain a promise of everlasting lives for themselves. People everywhere and always have hoped that their dying and resurrecting God can also get them into heaven so that they can escape personal death. Humans do have this thing about wanting some kind of personal immortality. That's understandable. But the reality of such hopes may forever be a mystery. Perhaps it makes more sense to put our attention fully on saving the life of this world, of which we are all a piece. And we do have a proven way to a kind of immortality, though. It's called live on after you die in the good things you pass on to the world. It's called defeat the darkness of disease, poverty, human greed, and hatred with the work of your life. Is that not a kind of immortality, a resurrection of one's spirit? And there are so many good ways to do that, and I know that many of you do it all the time. Today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you believe this congregation has a truth that must not be silenced, then please consider that when making your yearly pledge or a gift to our endowment fund. We have been here for 90 years, and there's no reason we can't be here for another 90 years or more. With your help, our message of love, justice, and reason can be perennial. Thank you.
Well, we've come to that part of our worship service that is called a time for generosity, but please permit me a few comments before I introduce the time for generosity. In my opening remarks, I alluded to the openness of this faith tradition. Where else are you going to hear the words of a cleric who got kicked out of his church? Or Pink Floyd's Great Gig in the Sky? Or the Jesus of history? Or finding mysticism in a kayak? Thank you, Jennifer, for your music, and thank you, Reverend Lynn and Reverend Jerry, for reminding me of why I'm a Unitarian Universalist. And now to introduce a time for generosity. So I've been worship associate quite a few times, and I've come across this name quite often of a Vietnamese Buddhist monk and a peace activist. The correct pronunciation of his name is Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh. And these are his words. As we cultivate the seeds of love and compassion will flower. Now, your offering cultivates the soil of this community and leads to acts of compassion and joy. We ask that you give from your abundance. You can find us online at uuflint.org, or you can send a check to the church office. And one more comment, a personal note. During this pandemic year, my cost of living expenses have been less, and I made the decision to be more charitable with my extra dollars. I increased my pledge to this church, for example. Maybe you'll find it in your budget and in your heart to increase your pledge.
And thank you for that, Harold. Within each of us lies the hope of Easter. It is a personal matter, a private affair. It is up to each one of us to discover for ourselves and to help others learn that there is grace and renewal in our souls, seeds waiting to burst into bloom. Out of the loneliness and the togetherness, the pain and the joy, comes the possibility of our own resurrection.
And now let us extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.